and let us all do we can to build a better future.
To him and his own actions, he's right now being accused of plagiarizing, which is interesting. I find it interesting because he was given us a ton of praise after going after Matt Taibbi when Matt Taibbi went on his show. So apparently BSDNC anchor Mehdi Hasan decided to do some click copy paste. So how did this happen? How did this come to be? This is an article from the New York Post. We also got an article also from Fox News as well. So it's nearly copied word for word. So BSDNC anchor Mehdi Hasan was accused Tuesday of plagiarizing a column he wrote in favor of child spanking more than 2 decades ago. Interesting. Hasan seemed to have copied full paragraphs from a U.S. News and World Report, tweaking only a few words into the 2000 independent editorial he wrote titled "No Harm in Smacking," independent journalist Li Feng reported. So the original article, When to Spank, was published 2 years before Hasan's piece and was written by Lynn Rosen and Anna Merlin. Several lines and paragraphs Hasan reportedly authored were taken nearly verbatim from the article, according to Feng. So here's something that I want to bring up here. And I want to bring up the 2016 Democratic primary. The Democratic primary, when it was being covered, at least by TYT, and Jimmy Dore was on the ground, there was an incident in which Bernie Sanders was finishing a rally, and while the camera was on him, Jimmy Dore told the cameraman to go ahead and film the media pit where all the journalists were at. And they were all copying each other's notes, click, copy, paste. And we've seen this kind of click, copy, paste journalism before. Especially when it comes down to stories talking about Russiagate or Trump or calling Bernie Sanders supporters Bernie Bros. All the titles and articles were nearly the same. This seems to be how mainstream media operates. Click, copy, paste. Even its most high tier profile journalists and commentators are doing the same thing. Really says a lot about this profession of corporate media and why people are no longer trusting these institutions. So again, here is what Li Feng reported. And I want to make sure everyone sees this for their own eyes. Well, Mehdi Hasan doesn't smear other journalists with lies and false accusations of bigotry to get ahead. He also had a history of stealing from them. So here we go. Again, this is from his Substack. And I want to share this tab right here. Last week, I published a detailed response to MSNBC pundit Mehdi Hasan's recent accusation that journalist Matt Taibbi lied under oath while speaking to Congress. I explained the process by which a prominent disinformation NGO worked closely with an arm of the Department of Homeland Security to lobby Twitter on content moderation policies. In the piece, I unearthed new information, including new emails from DHS. The piece clearly explains the process that Taibbi described in his testimony and shows that Hasan's allegation was widely off the mark. Hold on, let me continue reading here. Now, again, in response, Mehdi fumed and doubled down. He accused me of lying, of attempting to win access to the Twitter files by sucking up to Musk, apparently unaware that I already had access to Twitter's internal files and had published investigations using the documents of careerism and most viciously, absurdly, of being an Islamophobic bigot. The cable news talker from the UK has built a career off such tactics, entertaining crowns with his attempts to mock opponents and turn every complicated policy and political issue into a petty slugfest of insults and partisanship. It's worth reflecting on Hasan's rise and how his attacks on journalists who publish the Twitter files are shaped by an intellectually lazy form of journalism. His allegation of Islamophobia, first of all, is blatantly dishonest. I never said anything about Hasan's religion. He is referencing an interaction on Twitter in which I mentioned his past work for Qatar-owned Al Jazeera to argue that it was inconsistent of him to exempt his own work from the kinds of criticism he was hurling at then Representative Tulsi Gabbard. He had suggested that Gabbard was acting as a foreign agent because of her because some of her contributors are supporters of the Indian Prime Minister Modi, despite his own work for an outlet funded by a foreign government. You can read what I wrote and judge for yourself about the supposed Islamophobic smear, and you could hear me discuss it at length in a chat last week with Glenn Greenwald on System Update. Now, let's look at this part right here. I want to bring this up here because it's important to see how this all started. So the investigative reporter, returning back to the New York Post, who has gone into Twitter spats with Hasan before, accused the cable anchor of stealing from other journalists' work. Hasan never attributed any of the words or reporting to the U.S. News and World Report, Fang said. Instead, he reportedly lifted full paragraphs, which he tweaked only to update the tense 2 years later. Some sentences were exact replicas word for word. For example, this sentence appears exactly the same in both articles. In fact, the reverse may be true. A few studies suggest that when used appropriately, spanking makes small children less likely to fight with others and more likely to obey their parents. Does this look like a face that would lie to you? Yeah, it would. Yes, it would be. This is what it looks like. Now, thanks to Hasan's alleged plagiarism was a clear violation of the simple ethics code outlined by the Society of Professional Journalists. Fang said he began investigating the anchor's early career following their Twitter beef when readers encouraged him to look into Hasan's background. Hasan has not publicly addressed plagiarism accusations. Now, I had a chance to see some of these little snippets, and I want to share it with all of you as well. So this is back to Li Fang's Substack right here. So now here's what Hasan wrote. No harm in spanking. In 1998, even the American Academy of Pediatrics toned down its blanket injunction against smacking, though it still makes a dim view of the practice. Interesting. That's just the first sentence. Now here's the same sentence. Again, we can see the paragraphs here. The U.S. News and World Report. This week, even the American Academy of Pediatrics is expected to tone down its blanket injunction against spanking, though it still takes a dim view of the practice and encourages parents to develop discipline alternatives. Almost seems like it word for word. Again, it looks shockingly familiar. It's a coinky-dink. What are you doing here, Mehdi Hasan? It's one thing to start going after journalists. It's another thing altogether to be copying their work. It really says a lot about the state of affairs of corporate media. So whenever you see these vote blue, no matter who frauds saying, oh yeah, Mehdi Hasan owned Matt Taibbi. No, that's not true at all. Remember, everyone that you see at CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, CBS, ABC, they're there to read a script, and they're paid very well. And they're there to get access to the top 1%, because remember, the same people who own our politicians also control the media. It's a sick system we live in.